Welcome everyone to another episode of Play It Through. This is another bonus Play It Through. If you're unfamiliar with Trash Dove, well, that's Trash Dove, what you're seeing right now. It is all over Facebook right now. It is pretty much on every single post, everywhere on Facebook, and a great YouTuber by the name of John Riggs, Rig Gaming, has gone ahead and made a small ROM hack of Joust, turning the ostrich and the knight on the ostrich into Trash Dove. So I decided to boot it up, give it a try. Be sure to check out John Riggs' channel. The link will be in the description. He does a ton of videos, not only about ROM hacking in general, but also making repros. He also does some Let's Play extreme stuff, and just a lot of really cool stuff, and a lot of informative stuff. If you're wondering like how repros work and how they get made, that's the channel for you, so be sure to check that out, and there's also going to be a button to subscribe to this channel at the end of this video. But anyway guys, here we go. If you're somehow unfamiliar with Joust, it is an absolute classic arcade game from Williams. I absolutely love this game. I played a lot of it, a little bit of the arcade one, but especially this NES version. Well, not this one with Trash Dove in it, of course. But basically, it's very similar to Nintendo's Balloon Fight. This came first, but if you play Balloon Fight and not play Joust, it pretty much works identical. Instead of popping guys with balloons, instead you're taking out knights riding ostriches, which is just one of the craziest concepts ever. The entire world of Joust is pretty weird as well. When you defeat an enemy, an egg is laid, which of course if you pick up will give you bonus points, but the egg can then hatch into one of the knights, and then another one of the ostriches will show up and pick up the knight, and then you have another enemy you have to deal with. So not only are the eggs important for points, but you also have to make sure they either go off screen into the lava, or you end up getting to them before they hatch and summon a new enemy to come after you. Like a lot of arcade games, it's more about getting the high score. The game will just keep going and going. I'm not sure how many levels were actually in the arcade version, or how many levels is the end of Joust on the NES, as I've never made it that far, but I know it goes well over 50. The designs for the stages start to loop after stage 10. For this run, I'm going to go ahead and play up to stage 21. That way we get to see all three of the different enemy types, and you get plenty of head-banging Trash Dove action that is going on. Of course, this was a very quick ROM hack, so some of the sprites, as you notice, like when the knights are first coming out, there's no change in the sprite there. This was done in just a handful of minutes. He actually has the entire video of putting this together, so you can check that out. My absolute favorite thing, though, about the sprite work, the ROM hack itself, is instead of, like, making the wings flap, of course, like you normally would have for the ostrich, he, of course, does the headbang every time you end up trying to get altitude. It just makes this thing very simple, but funny as heck to me. As you make it through wave after wave, more enemies will start to be introduced. The amount of enemies per stage also ends up increasing until it reaches its limit, and once you reach a certain point in the game, the only enemy you're going to be battling is the hardest enemy in the stages. The egg wave every 5 waves will pretty much just net you some extra bonus points as long as you're able to collect all of the eggs within a little bit of time. The easy overall path, it's the same setup for each of these egg stages as far as I know, unless it changes once you get really far into it. But after we complete that, we're moving now on to wave 11. One of the keys for Joust, of course, is collecting the eggs in a relatively quick order so that you maximize the amount of points you're getting per egg, though it's rather difficult sometimes in order to grab them all quickly, or a lot of them end up bouncing absolutely everywhere. Here's our example of one of the knights being hatched from one of the eggs and then becoming a new enemy for us to battle. The other key is, of course, avoiding the lava on the far left and right sides of the bottom of the screen. You can be grabbed by the giant hand that comes out and ends up pulling you in, which also will hold enemies, and while it's holding an enemy, until it pulls it under, you can actually run into it to make sure you still take it out and potentially can get the egg that it would end up dropping. The other big thing in the game is the pterodactyl. He shows up in any of the main waves that you are taking too long on. And while it seems like initially that you can't take him out, he's actually killable, but it has to be a setup. Like right here, for example, he's going to end up showing up, and if you run directly into him, into his mouth, at the right angle, you'll be able to take him out, and you'll get some points, of course, for doing so. The pterodactyl is fast, and he also spawns just off the left or right sides of the screen, and sometimes when doing a screen transition in the heat of the moment, I'll end up accidentally running into him and losing a life, because I just didn't even see him spawn yet. Here we go with the next egg wave. Easily can kind of get up here. I usually start with the bottom, and then get the one in the center, and then go to the top. And the reason why is I can then just run here. Now, of course, you can also kind of run over to the right here, go to the center, and then to the bottom. That's probably the most optimal solution for doing this. I'm not an expert as far as getting a high score in Joust. I just like playing it, and that's just always the way I ended up doing it forever. One of the other big things, of course, is knowing about where the enemies are going to spawn from, so you can kind of easily gang up on a group of them, at least, at the start of a wave. You'll notice that I'll go to, like, the spawner that has the most, and this way I can kind of bounce on several of the enemies, get rid of them, and then focus on the stragglers that came from the other portals. The only real difference between the enemies that you're dealing with, besides color scheme, of course, is that they have a little bit different AI as far as like the height they end up reaching right away and a bit of their aggressiveness, but since you're taking them all out in the same way, it's not like any of the enemies take multiple hits to take out. A lot of your strategies are going to pretty much remain the same. I think, though, the coolest thing about this particular version of Joust is just the fact that Satoru Iwata, the former head of Nintendo, who was an absolute great programmer, is the one who actually programmed the NES version of Joust. It was supposed to be a partnership between like Nintendo and Atari that kind of fell through, but he actually made that version. It's actually the earliest game he supposedly worked on, so just really, really cool stuff overall. If you also go to the Japanese version of Joust, you'll notice that it actually has a copyright 1983 at the bottom of it, and the game is presented very much like one of the old black box Nintendo games, as it was meant to come out near the launch of the Famicom in Japan in '83. So here we go to wave 21. I'm going to do this wave and then start the next one. That'll be where we finish up, but this is the one that introduces the new enemy. You can see them, the blue enemies here. I think they're called Shadow Warriors. These guys are much more aggressive, and they get a lot of height really fast. The speed is the key with them. If there's platforms in their way, they can just kind of butt their head on it, so it can be hard sometimes to actually get at them. But that's really all there is to Joust, or in this case, the amazing Trash Dove on the NES. I love Joust. I've played it quite a lot, so I thought with the whole popularity of everything, this ROM hack came out, I was like, you know what, I haven't played Joust on the NES for a while, so why not go ahead and mess with it. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to check out John Riggs' channel for not only this video, but also plenty of awesome repro stuff.